Well, it's been kind of a challenging week here in the news. Have anybody else felt like that? It was just like it was a tough week for a lot of us this last week. It started out we had an earthquake in Alaska. We had gyrations on Wall Street, all in New York. We had a death of a president in Texas. We had accusations in Washington. We had immigrations on the southern border. We just had stuff all over the place. It just seemed very disturbing and very unsettling. But everywhere it is Christmas. And that's a good thing. It's a season of God coming. It's a season of the Savior of the world arriving. It's this season of the King of Kings, the one who will make it all new. And it's a season of the one who will fix it all. And that's good news. Remember about 10 days ago, 15 days ago, we had all that smoke in the air. We had dust in the air. And it rained. And what happened? It was all just crystal clear and fresh. God is going to come, and that's what it's going to be like. Remember this field over here? 2 weeks ago, it was a dry, barren, dusty field full of wrinkled up weeds. And today, look at it on your way out. It's this verdant, green carpet. It's beautiful. That's what it's going to be like when He comes. You ever lived in the snow? You know that first snowfall when everything's kind of brown and gray and black, and then it snows and everything is covered in this beautiful white velvet. It's really beautiful. I think it's cold, but it's beautiful. That's what it's going to be like when He comes. Matthew says, "For the Son of Man is going to come and in the glory of His Father with His angels. And in a moment, everything will be new and remade." And we'll see the ushering in of the new heaven and the new earth. And it will be fresh, and it will be clean, it will be remade. The new heavens and the new earth will arrive. And it will be good. Now, Malachi is living in a pretty dry and dusty time. And he's talking to people who are not new. And he gets pretty specific, and he gets pretty scary. And he says, "Who can endure the day of the coming of the Lord? Who can stand when He appears? For He's like a refiner's fire." You know, when they refine gold and stuff, they heat it up, and the dross or the excess stuff floats on the top. You know, it pierces the bottom. It separates that. It's really evident. You scrape that off. He says it'll be like refiner's fire. It will be like fuller's soap. It will be like bleach. And bleach can be pretty intense. We just saw. "I will draw near you for judgment." Malachi says, "I'm going to be judging you." And he says there are some things that are going on in this culture that are a problem. Specifically, he says, "Hey, your worship is inadequate." And he says that will be corrected. We have leaders who are accepting animals for sacrifice that are blemished or blind, and God says they got to be perfect, or they've got to be quality animals. He says people are not giving generously. Leaders are allowing that, and the people who come to worship aren't even receiving the benefits of worship. So worship is a problem, and when the Lord comes, He's going to deal with that. And this prophet of Yahweh goes on. He says, there are cultural leaders who are pointing you in very unhealthy, terrible directions. He says, "I'll be swift witness against the sorcerers, against the adulterers, against those who swear falsely." He says there are going to be consequences for people that point God's people away from God. These sorcerers who have this magic or have this power or who've tapped into the dark side, they point people away from God. He says there's consequences to that. These adulterers who say, God tells us how relationships are supposed to be, but no, we know better. We're going to do it differently. And points people away from God's plan. There are consequences to that. He's going to deal with that. And then he condemns people who don't live in compassion. He says, I'll take on those who oppress the hired worker and his wages, people who hire people that don't pay him, the widow and the fatherless, against those who thrust aside the sojourner, the traveler who needs support. This lack of caring for vulnerable people is a problem, and God is going to come and he is going to deal with it. And I would not want to be there when that happens, because God sounds ticked off. On this day he arrives, he's going to be removing those stains, and he's going to be removing those people who are the cause of them. And who's he going to be removing? He's going to be removing us. We're going to be in the target for that. Because these problems that Malachi is describing, those are not problems that just happened 3,000 years ago and then got solved. Those are problems we're dealing with today. I mean, look at worship. How many churches have worship where people come in and stand and they sit and they say a prayer, and people are just they can be mindless liturgies. Frankly, we don't have that problem here. We really don't. It's like, yeah, well, whatever. No, I don't think we do. I mean, I've been in churches where we do. I have led churches where we have had that problem. But, I really don't think we have it. But there are a lot. It's easy. It's easy to come in and just kind of go to your church thing. Coffee and church by noon, and I'm done. That is an issue. And this issue of cultural leaders. How many cultural leaders do we have that could care less about God, that have an agenda, have things they want to tell us to do? And how many of us listen to them? How many of us listen to Dr. Phil or Oprah or all these other people about our relationships, our marriages, our money, our careers, our lives? And then maybe we listen to God. But these other people have a big part in our ears. When God comes, he's going to address that. And then compassion. How many times do we see people who could have forgiven people and they don't? Who could have helped when they were needed and they didn't? Who could have made an effort that would have made a difference in the lives of others and who don't? How many of us have relationships, have things we do that hurt others, and we don't even necessarily need to do that? I mean, think about the time you went in the store and you got a great deal on a pair of shoes or a pair of pants. Where were those made? Maybe in a sweatshop in Bangladesh. Somebody's life is upside down because you got cheap shoes. I mean, we celebrate that, but we don't really even have necessarily a sensitivity to, is there a cost to that? How many times have we maybe dismissed a homeless person or somebody in prison because, hey, we're all responsible for our own behavior? How many times have we not heard our neighbor's need because we don't even know who our neighbor is, or we just don't have relationships with them? We are part of the same compassion deficit problem. And God is going to come and he's going to deal with that. Malachi says, when the Lord whom you seek is coming, I will draw near and for judgment. Is God going to judge us? We hear all the time, don't judge. Is God going to judge us? You guys always answer. You're not answering this time. That's a scary question, isn't it? Well, here's the answer.
He will unless we've been wiped clean and confess our sins.
He will unless we've been wiped clean and have confessed our sins.
He will have bleached.
God is going to judge us, even though we've been wiped clean.
That's like a question that can't be answered because it says in the Bible that you're going to be judged by God.
Yes, I mean, I think that's, thank you. And I'm pushing your answer, but that's really the answer. Yeah.
It says, it talks about Judgment Day in the Bible.
So what's that look like? Well, this is what it looks like. God is going to be sitting at his bench wearing this robe of righteousness. Maybe having this gavel of justice in his hand. And he's going to look you in the eye and say, how do you plead to all of these problems, 3 of which I just talked about? And anything other than, I'm completely innocent. The judgment is what? Guilty. Because he came to deal with that. He is going to say guilty, and he's going to turn to the bailiff, and he's going to say, take him away. And the bailiff is going to grab the arm of Jesus and take him away for punishment. And God's going to turn back to you. And he's going to look you in the eye. And he's going to say, punishment's been paid. Don't you have a business to run? Don't you have some things to study at school? Don't you have some meals to cook for your family? Don't you have some duties to do as a good citizen? Don't you have something to do? Because I prepared you to do them. I need you to get out there and do it. So, get out of it. See you later. Next. The day of judgment is coming. And as you just said, Carol, we have been cleaned white as snow, and we are not held for that, for those consequences. There are consequences, but they're not ours. They're Jesus's. And he takes them for us. Because we have been prepared for things other than just to be punished. We have been prepared to be teachers, to be fathers, to be neighbors, to be doctors, to be students. And we have jobs to do in that area. And God calls us to do them. He prepares us to do them. And when we fall down and do other things, he says, I want you to do those, and I love you, and I'm going to punish my son for that. Wow. That's who he is. Malachi says the reason for that is that God had a plan for us. We read earlier in verses 6 and 7, for I, the Lord, do not change. And I told you long ago that I don't want to see you destroyed. I, the Lord, do not change. Therefore you, O children of Jacob, my chosen people, are not consumed. I'm not going to throw you away. You're special. You're special to me. He goes on to say, for the days of your father, you've turned aside my statutes. You haven't done what I told you to say. I know that. But return to me, and I will return to you. God says, I have plans for you. So get out there and do them. Punishment's gone. You're white as bleached cloth. And so we wait. And so we mark the time that he will come. Not in fear, but in hope. Not dreading, but grateful that we will be changed and set free. That's what this season is. That's why everyone's going to light the Advent candles right now. Because we're going to mark the time we have
It's up to everybody.
and celebrate it. And celebrate the season knowing that He comes. And He comes to us and for us. And that we do that in joy. Let's go up there and light those 2 candles we talked about. He's coming. He's coming in judgment. He's coming in hope. He's coming for us. May we respond with joy and celebration in this season. Because He comes for us. In His name. Amen.